Al Capone is remembered as one of the most powerful criminals in American history. A criminal genius. The man who ruled Chicago. That's the story everyone knows. But what if it isn't true? What if Al Capone wasn't the mastermind we were taught to believe? What if he wasn't the cause of the chaos, but a convenient myth created to hide a much bigger failure? When people hear the name Al Capone, they don't usually think in facts, they think in images. A fedora, a cigar, a confident smile, a man who supposedly controlled an entire city through fear and intelligence. This image feels complete, almost cinematic, and that's exactly why it's dangerous, because once a story feels complete, we stop questioning it. History is complicated, reality is slow, messy, and full of contradictions, but myths are clean. Myths give us clear villains, clear causes, and simple conclusions. Al Capone became useful to history because he turned a chaotic era into a single recognizable face. Instead of asking why prohibition failed, why corruption was everywhere, why law enforcement was inconsistent and politically compromised, history offered one simple answer: him. We are often told that Al Capone ran Chicago, but power doesn't work that way. Chicago in the 1920s wasn't controlled by one man. It was a fragmented system of politicians, police departments, judges, business owners, gangs, and constant flows of money. Capone was one visible node inside a much larger structure. He didn't create corruption, he operated within it, and his visibility made him appear far more powerful than he actually was. Unlike many criminals of his time, Al Capone didn't hide. He attended public events, spoke to journalists, smiled for cameras, and allowed himself to be photographed. In an era where most criminals stayed silent, Capone understood something crucial. If people talk about you, you exist in their imagination, and imagination is stronger than facts. The more visible he became, the more powerful he appeared, even when his real influence was limited and unstable. Newspapers didn't simply report on Al Capone, they shaped him. Headlines repeated the same words again and again: boss, king, empire. Over time, repetition turned speculation into truth, not because it was proven, but because it became familiar. The media didn't just describe Capone, it helped manufacture the legend that would outlive him. Al Capone is often described as a criminal mastermind, but real criminal empires don't rely on brilliance, they rely on predictability. Bribes, intimidation, routine, and exploitation of existing weaknesses. There was no flawless strategy, no exceptional intelligence, just a man taking advantage of a system that was already broken. Calling him a genius makes the system look innocent, and that framing is very convenient. Governments prefer symbols over explanations. It's easier to say that one man caused the problem than to admit that the system allowed it to happen. Al Capone became a symbol that absorbed responsibility. Once he was arrested, the story felt finished, but prohibition didn't fail because of Capone. Capone existed because prohibition failed. There is another reason the myth survived. Fear is uncomfortable. Fascination is easier. Over time, danger becomes entertainment, violence becomes personality, and power becomes style. That's how criminals turn into legends, not because they deserve it, but because distance softens reality. While the public focused on Al Capone, far fewer people asked deeper questions. Who protected him for years? Who benefited financially? Who looked away? Those names didn't become famous because anonymity is safer than truth. A single villain gives closure. If one man represents the problem, then removing him feels like justice, but history doesn't work that way. Removing Capone didn't remove corruption, didn't fix prohibition, and didn't change power structures. It only changed the story people told themselves. The real deception isn't that Al Capone was dangerous, it's that he was exceptional. He wasn't the cause, he was the symptom, and symptoms are easier to remember than diseases. This story isn't just about Al Capone, it's about how history simplifies reality, how media shapes memory, and how myths replace understanding. Because when we stop questioning legends, we don't learn the truth, we inherit illusions. And that's where history quietly misleads us.